All right, as the Texans approach the offseason and they look to improve their offensive coordinator, the question is, what are the other problems that the Texans have outside of the offensive coordinator? It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. Cody in Alabama for the Senior Bowl. I'm holding it down here in H-Town. Let's just get into this. The latest, by the way, it's not going to be Kubiak. So we know that in regards to the Slowick thing. We also know that Jacksonville, and we knew this from the beginning. It was actually a weird report from the jump. Jacksonville's not going to be interested in Chip Kelly because the head coach is going to call plays. I mean,
it's a non-play calling position, which we all assumed.
We shouldn't have needed this official confirmation. It was kind of obvious, but that if you believe the report that was put out there, which I think was just flat out made up, then maybe you thought the Texans would be competing with Jacksonville for Chip Kelly's services. That does not seem to be the case, and that was confirmed today at the press conference. But the search continues. I just put out a video about the right guy, the compromise, the organizational structure, if you want to check that out in the locker room. But I'm just going to ask this question, Cody. Outside of the coordinator, what are the Texans' biggest problems that have nothing to do with Bobby Slowick?
Well, they're a pretty lightly talented offense overall. And I'd start with the offensive line. I feel like that's a major issue that needs to get addressed by the general manager and the head coach. They've got to figure out which players are worth keeping, which players are worth eating the big money to get rid of them, and which players are worth giving the opportunity to fight for a spot, and then who out and out needs to get replaced. I feel like if you've watched any of our shows, you know that we're all in favor of no more Shaq Mason at right guard, no more Shaq Mason on the Houston Texans. And so that offensive line, I think, to me, is where it really all starts. Because, yes, Laramie Tunsil is a good individual over there at left tackle, but the unity of that offensive line was sorely missing in 2024. It was a disaster for most of the year. It held the team back. It's probably one of the main reasons Bobby Slowick can point to and say, I got fired because of those five guys on a weekly basis.
Yeah, the offensive line, like any way you slice it, it's a problem. And I think the only thing that you feel real good about, maybe beyond this year, is Blake Fisher and trying to see if he can develop. Outside of that, like, your guess is as good as mine as to what the future is of the other four guys. We know if Laramie Tunsil's here, he's going to hold it down on the left side. But outside of that, I think all options are on the table when it comes to the offensive line. But it does start with the offensive line. I do think, like, as we get more into this, I think better things around the offensive line can also make the offensive line better as well. It's not as simple as put this offensive line out there and have John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson run routes and everything's going to be great. There are other things that can make the offensive line good, and that starts with some skill position guys. And pass catchers after Nico Collins is another thing. You're not going to have Tank Dell. Hopefully you move on from Stefon Diggs. Free agency, draft, all that. And this is not just the pass catchers. This is the receivers, tight ends as well. Mm-hmm. They need more running backs. They need to get running backs more involved in the receiving game. But pass catchers after Nico Collins, that's something that they need to desperately try to fix.
And the tough part about that is if you go and get veterans that are worth a crap, they're usually expensive. So you've got other needs you need to address, but that's near the top. And then you got to kind of wait for the draft to fall your way before you can pick a wide receiver. You're not getting the top guy. You're probably not getting the number 2 guy. So maybe the third guy slips to you or the fourth guy. You got to kind of be comfortable with, guys 3 through whatever in the wide receiver rankings. And then they've invested in that tight end room. It seems to be a poor investment with Dalton Schultz. Cade Stover, he's got some growth that needs to get displayed in a whole offseason. I would say that betting on a second-year tight end to be a big-time piece of your tight end room is a pretty risky situation, but there's only so many things that can fix all at once on offense. We have no idea what level of player Brevin Jordan's going to be after his injury. And based on the prove-it contract, heavily incentive-laden contract, they seem to also think there's a question mark about what he brings to the table. So you probably need to add guys there. And then you mentioned, backup running back. Hey, got to go find guys there, veterans that still have tread on the tire or a rookie. And all of a sudden, as we start to kind of talk about it, you start to have a lot of things start to fill up on the wants and needs list for this offense.
Well, I kind of disagree with your wording on a certain the way that you said something. You said you can't depend on a second-year tight end to fill, the tight end production. I think you can't rely on that second-year tight end, a fourth-round pick, kind of tweener, kind of project-ish type of guy.
Well, I just said it'd be risky. I didn't say you couldn't.
Well, I mean, there are plenty of second-year tight ends that you can rely on, and I think in the draft, to go back to this, like if Tyler Warren falls to 25 and you still think you need a wide receiver, a guy that could probably catch 60 balls his rookie year, I think you can be fine. I think Brock Bowers was fine this year as a first-year tight end. So I don't think it's just, well, he's a second-year tight end. I think he's just, in a perfect world, Cade Stover develops into a good number 2, number 3 tight end, but you still need guys who can be dynamic. So that's kind of my thing is, if tight end at 25, like if the number 1 tight end is there and he can do a lot of other things and provide you with a lot of other things to be able to do on offense, I think that's a possibility as well. I don't think it's just limited to wide receiver. Hell, someone on the chat asks, Albert, if Genty falls to 25, do you use the pick on him? Yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen. But if he's there, yeah, him and Mixon as a 1-2 punch, I would take that as well.
Look, you add talent however you can get it. Running back, tight end, wide receiver, you've got to add to that equation. And I prefer to have a young player, a rookie, as that draft pick. And then I prefer to address some of those other things that we've talked about, some additional wide receiver depth, some additional tight end depth with veterans, and try to go out there and find a bargain. Hopefully this new offensive coordinator, whoever the Texans hire, hopefully they go out there and they find just the right bargain for them, like D'Amico Ryans did for his defense last offseason with some of the guys that they brought in on the interior of the defensive line. You got to hope that guy has some ability to go out there and find a guy or two that's a nice little bargain for his offense.
Yeah, the weak tight end room is a problem. I know Nick Caley's been a popular pick. He's a tight end coach, so it's kind of one of his specialties and one of his things that he takes pride in. So if you do bring him in off of the McVay tree and the Caserio tree, he's also a guy who his specialty is tight end. So you got to think maybe that would help as well. Then we go to running back depth. Like the Joe Mixon thing is interesting. I don't think you can rely on Joe Mixon you should not be asking Joe Mixon to do everything that he's done right now. And it's really funny because Bobby Slowick talked about not using Mixon in the pass game because he wanted to keep him fresh. What were the benefits of keeping Joe Mixon fresh? The reserve running back position produced near the bottom of the league. You had a couple of long Dameon Pierce runs in like certain situations against the Titans, and when it was out of control against the Patriots, that completely skewed his numbers to where they look a lot better than they actually were when they used him. They got to get some running backs that can do multiple things and make multiple plays. I mean, we saw it yesterday in different forms, just in the Buffalo KC game. Like, you saw multiple running backs producing throughout the game on both teams. Also kind of saw it in the Washington Philly game to a certain point. Texans don't have that, and they need that badly.
The Bills trusted all three of their guys at different points in the game, as did the Kansas City Chiefs. The game-winning play, the final offensive play that wasn't a kneel down, was to their third running back. Their second running back scored the first touchdown of the game in Kareem Hunt. Isaiah Pacheco is kind of their hammer to go get some of those tough yards. Both those teams playing for the AFC Championship had three running backs that they could go to at any different moment. I don't think that's a coincidence. That's very clearly something that really good teams in the AFC possess. You even go to think about what the Chargers did over the course of this season. And I know you beat the Chargers, but they had J.K. Dobbins. When he got hurt, they had Gus Edwards. They had Hassan Haskins. There it is. Easy for me to say. Look at Baltimore. They've always had a couple of different guys that they can rely on. It's like you look around the AFC and the teams that you want to continuously beat or be and they've got multiple running backs. And I just don't see it with Dameon Pierce. And frankly, the Texans don't either, with the amount of times that they put him on the field in games that mattered.
Yeah. So my whole thing is whatever you can do to improve your offense, improve the talent, do it. Like the offensive line, I think the offensive line can get better through better skill position. We saw it with Joe Mixon. Like a lot of times, like Joe Mixon was making that offensive line look better. Now you don't want to run it back with this same offensive line, but you got to figure that out.
Yeah,
you got to figure that out. And you got it. The offense has to be where they need to focus. Now we've talked about everything, every element of this offense. It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. The CJ Stroud missteps, something else that comes up, kind of a sensitive subject, but CJ Stroud, he's also got to get better, regardless of what his surroundings are from what we saw last year.
Probably my biggest beef with CJ Stroud in 2024 is he said at the beginning of the season, before the season, during the season, late in the season, after the bye week ahead of Miami, about a conversation he had with Tua Tagovailoa was, I'm going to take what the defense gives me. I'm going to take what the defense gives me. I'm going to take what's there. I'm not going to try to do too much. And then he went out there, and for the majority of the season, he tried to do too much in a lot of the situations, and he held on to the ball too long, and he took some sacks that he shouldn't take, and he didn't throw it when he saw it. And when there were open players, he wasn't seeing them, or he wasn't trusting them to stay open, or he wasn't trusting the play that was called. For whatever reason, his willingness to trust what was called, trust what he saw, was lower in 2024 than it was as a rookie, when it should have been higher in 2024 as it was. And that's my biggest thing with Stroud is all year long he told us, I'm going to take what the defense gives me. And then he proceeded to not take what the defense gave him over the course of the season.
Yes. And that's something that's going to have to be implemented into CJ's mindset, and something that he's going to have to practice as well. I did see the report that he's turning down the Pro Bowl games this year. So I'm surprised he actually got there, to be honest with you, even as an alternate, but he's turning that down, and maybe we have a more focused CJ Stroud next year, for lack of I mean, I think the offseason maybe changes a little bit.
It's not just Bobby Slowick or just the offensive line or just the skill position talent that led to a disappointing 2024 for CJ Stroud. And when you have that type of season, you've got to go back to when you finished 2023, what from that process did work, what from that process didn't work, and you've got to change and evaluate and reshape and rework that entire offseason so that 2025 is way, way better than 2024.
Yep. That's a fact. He's got to get better, no matter the what, when, why, how. On the chat, one Peter, it's so nice he asked it twice, asked, what are your thoughts on Zach Martin speculation? I haven't seen any Zach Martin speculation. I don't know where it's coming from. I know he's 35 years old. I know he's a 9-time Pro Bowler. What he played 10 games last year. Mm-hmm. If Zach Martin wanted to play football, then you could do a lot worse. I don't know what he's going to get. I think his contract, the last year was voided. I think he was going to make like 14, 15 million, something like that. It's probably going to be an 8-figure contract. But if you bring Zach Martin in and he can play, I know he's 35. He's not a normal football player though. Like, so I know most guys will fall off at 35. This is like an all-timer, one of the best offensive linemen that the Cowboys have ever had. And I also think he would be an adult in the room that maybe that offensive line could use to be able to follow. I don't know if he wants to play. I would assume maybe he wants to stay in Dallas. But if Zach Martin wanted to come to Houston, I think you could do much worse than signing Zach Martin to a 1-2 year deal, whatever, even at 35.
I thought the speculation was that he may not even play. I thought that was the speculation.
Retirement talk is strong.
I mean, look, the thing I worry about with Zach Martin is the thing that you worried about when Tyron Smith left, which was, okay, like, is the body going to hold up? Is he going to be healthy? And Martin's played a lot of snaps, man.
Tyron was always hurt, though. Always.
Sure. I don't want to build a whole plan around this guy's going to save the offensive line and he plays 8 games because he's 36 years old and he's had injuries in the past few seasons.
I agree. I do think there's value, like intangible value. But the questions are pretty clear when it comes to Zach Martin. It's not like some sort of mystery. It's just it's not like his play was like significantly declining when he got hurt.
No.
You know, that's the other thing. Like it's not like he got hurt and you were like, damn, man, he was already what? Nah, he was still kind of playing pretty decent.
And you look at what Detroit was able to do. I mean, it's a different player, not quite Martin's caliber, but still a really good player and an older guy. They went and got Kevin Zeitler last offseason, plopped him in there at right guard, and an already good offensive line got even better because they had a veteran, knew what he was doing. They could trust him. And then, I think Zeitler got banged up at the end of the year. He's a free agent again, and I'd assume he'd be in high demand amongst not only the Lions, but the rest of the NFL. But again, the risks associated, look, there's risk associated with any player you bring in. The risk associated with 35-year-old guys all of a sudden showing up and not having it anymore, like you called with Shaq Mason in training camp, it's a lot higher than somebody showing up at 28, 29 and not having it.
Right. 100,000%. On the super chat, Birdie Boy says, would you rather have a great OC that leaves after a year or a solid OC that sticks around for a while? So this is the old, you have a good coaching staff and then you have to replace the offensive coordinator. I would rather have the great. I just that would be me. What say you?
I lean towards the great offensive coordinator because if you had a great offensive coordinator in 2025 with this version of the defense, which is not going to drastically change, you got a chance to win the AFC. You got a chance to be in the conversation for one of the top 2 seeds of the AFC. And maybe if you take care of your business in the playoffs, you're in the Super Bowl conversation. Like if you have a good guy, yeah, the defense is still going to be good next year, but that defense is going to change. And then the onus is maybe going to move slightly to the offense, having to have a little bit more responsibility. So I'd try to pair it up, have that awesome 2025, and then go, look, you do all the research this year. Not every guy that you do the research on gets hired. So you can come back again the next year and start picking from the guys. Plus, if you're a kingmaker spot that all of a sudden is putting people into head coaching opportunities, more and more people are interested in your opportunity. So I'll take the great guy, and if he moves on after a year, so be it. I'll try to find the next great guy.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'll take that all day. Marky Mark on the super chat. My biggest concern with CJ was he let his rookie successes get to his head. He was partying it up all offseason. I hope to see him really focused on improving as a starting QB this offseason. First of all, I don't think CJ Stroud's really a partier. I don't even know if he drinks, to be honest with you. So I don't know that he was partying. There were a lot of interviews and stuff. I think he was still working out, but yeah, he admitted that maybe he thought this was a little easier than it actually was. But I don't think he was like hitting the town or anything like that.
I wouldn't confuse partying with being busy.
Yeah.
Like he was non-football busy last offseason.
That's the best way to say it.
Like he was non-football busy. I mean, I know he stopped off in Paris and threw some routes, and I know he threw some routes with whoever was with him when they were in the Middle East and in where did he go? He went to Japan with Micah Parsons. Like, I know there was some football stuff.
James said thinks he meant praying it up.
Yeah. But he was certainly non-football busy. The interviews, the conversations, went to the Pro Bowl, went to the Super Bowl. There was a lot.
Andy asks on the soup, would you say 3/4 of Zach Martin is better than everyone else on the Texans O-line except Tunsil? I would. Look, he's 35 years old. How's he going to rehab and stuff? I'll just put it this way. He's not going to cheat you. Like, I think Shaq Mason cheated the Texans. I think Titus Howard cheated the Texans. I don't think those guys controlled everything that they could control after they signed their extensions. Whether it was getting distracted off the field on Twitter to where you have to delete Twitter, whether it was coming in shape after getting the contracts. I don't think they rewarded the Texans' faith in them with giving them. It almost felt like they got the bread and then the whole mindset and everything changed. Titus seemed to kind of snap out of it after getting kind of humbled and moved to guard. But I don't think they rewarded it. That will not happen with Zach Martin. If Zach Martin steps on a football field, it's going to be because he wants to be good at football. He will not be hey, I'm going to take some money and steal this. If he steps in there, it's going to be because he thinks he can play.
I was glued to the narrative and the story around the Eagles offensive line and how they had their starting center. Like they weren't sure he could go. He's active, but they're not starting him. They move their guard over to center. And in the game, you see it, the guard who's playing center, Dickerson, he gets hurt and can barely move. And he waves off the other hurt guy. He's like, no, I got it. And then eventually he can't go in. They have to put the hurt guy in. He has to finish the game. And then they're both just it's like a mash unit at the end. Like they're both just left it all on the field. And I'm like, I don't know that the Texans have any of those guys that would just, I don't care. I don't have a new contract yet. I'm going out there and we've got to get this. And I've got to block and my back doesn't work. And I could barely bend over to snap the football, but by God, Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and Lane Johnson and AJ Brown and everybody in Philadelphia needs me, so I'm going to go do it. Go find me a couple of those guys. Go find me a couple of just mean, tough, I'll play through anything. And the way you kind of talk about Martin, he kind of feels that way. He'll go out on his shield before he's did not practice because of injury and did not play because of injury.
Yeah. That's really what you need on the offensive line in some way, shape, or form. You need something like that. To get it right. H says, I thought Titus played well enough at left guard. Okay. Well, that's a hell of a standard for one of the highest paid right tackles in the league.
Well, and now if he plays left
guard.
And now if he plays left guard, one of the highest paid left guards in the league.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't really I just don't think you approach this offseason. And I don't even know how much of an investment it takes. This is me with the offensive line. You can find offensive linemen anywhere. I'm not going to sit here and do the examples that people the way that running backs get talked about in the draft annoys me. It's just stupid. You can find this guy in the 6th round in the 5th. It's okay. We could play that game with every position, but you can find players in different areas. For the offensive line, I'm more focused on the offensive weapons because I think these guys on the offensive line, outside of a Tunsil and maybe a Fisher, I don't think you have to invest too much to find guys. I don't think it's the most far-fetched thing to think a guy in the 5th or 6th round can beat out Titus Howard at left guard.
You don't have to spend for. I've already had 5 people ask me about Trey Smith, the right guard for the Kansas City Chiefs. He'll be the most expensive offensive lineman for the interior this offseason free agency if the Chiefs let him go. Yeah. You maybe don't have to spend a Trey Smith to just get better than the guys that they already have, is what you're saying.
I think if you told me that I could work the guys on the street waiver wire right now blindly, and you told me that I had to find a right guard, I think I could find a Shaq Mason. Maybe I'm not a scout. I'm not anything like that. I think I could find a Shaq Mason. If you told me that in the 5th or 6th round, I have to find someone that's better than Shaq Mason, I think I can do it. Can you find a left guard better than Titus Howard? I would say probably so. This is the thing that I think they need to do. And this goes back to kind of the improvements that we've already mentioned, because this comes with actually being at camp, watching at camp. And you and I are very attentive at camp. It's not a cakewalk. We're watching everything. We're writing down special teams reps and stuff like that in alignment.
We care about 1 through 90. 1 through 90.
It's not a hey, let's chat type of thing. Yes. So I say all that because I think there needs to be a new mindset on offense too, where if you want to say that Laramie Tunsil and Blake Fisher are your starting tackles, I'm okay with it. I need some competition. I don't care who it is. I need Titus Howard rotating at left guard and competing for his job. I need center competition and I need right guard competition. I need the rep split. If it's 60-40, if it's 50-50, if it's 75-25 first team, I need to see it. I don't need to go into camp next year like we did this year and see that Kenyon Green is your unquestioned starting left guard. Juice Scruggs is your unquestioned, unchecked starting center. And Shaq Mason, despite the fact he's walking like someone that I watch on my 700-pound life, does not need to be your unchecked right guard. That's what I need to see. I need to see at least some sort of competition. If you're going to hand out unchallenged positions, do it with people who deserve it. I need to see that. Yeah. Because that was pretty ridiculous. I don't need continuity. I don't need continuity. I didn't have continuity in 2023.
Well, they just showed us in the most important game of the season, the divisional round. The continuity actually doesn't matter that much because they started the guy that had been hurt for a month over the guy that had been playing for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't care about continuity. I really don't. If you want to figure that out, figure it out. It's like versatility. Dietology says tired of the young O-line. Draft should be wide receiver, running back, tight end, free safety. I'm with you. And if safety falls to you and it's a luxury pick and you have a chance to get the best safety in the draft, which sometimes happens at 25, go ahead and do that. That's fine. That's a luxury I can take. But there's one thing that the Texans used to overrate in the O'Brien era, and I think there is value of it when it comes to offense, when it comes to like backups. But he used to always tell me it. Versatility. You have to have versatility. They drafted Titus Howard and said, yeah, he's an offensive lineman. He's versatile. It's like, dude, after someone who's good at something instead of someone who's okay at a bunch of things or even worse than okay. Versatility was so overvalued.
After they spent 4 years ruining Xavier Su'a-Filo by not just giving him a position and playing him everywhere on the offensive line. Yeah. They're like, oh, let's do it again.
Versatility. Like, I don't need
the same thing with Max Sharping, too.
Like, if you tell me a guy's versatile and he can be on the field for all 4 snaps, okay. Like, at different spots, like, sometimes a versatile DB, he can be in the box on certain downs. He can be back on certain downs. He can be in the slot certain downs. He can line up outside certain downs. The offensive lineman, more times than not, like, someone's not playing left guard and then on the very next play moving to right tackle. Like, so if you want to have backup versatiles, that's fine. And that was what they used to overvalue. Now they overvalue continuity too much on the offensive line. So it almost feels like they've gone from like overvaluing versatility to now overvaluing continuity. Screw that crap. Just get the best guy that you could do. I don't care if you get a right guard and all he can play is right guard and he can't even move to his left or whatever to play left. I don't care. Quit the continuity thing and quit the versatility thing, and let's move on, because it's been 2 things that have been overvalued. And you know the thing that's remained consistent through these 2 things that have been overvalued? The offensive line has sucked. It doesn't matter if there's nothing invested in it. It's sucked. And the craziest thing about it is when the offensive line was the worst, when it was absolute dumpster fires, in both of those eras, you still won as many football games. 2018, Julian Davenport's your left tackle. You went 11-5. You went 11-5. Then you traded for Laramie Tunsil. You went 10-6. You went 10-6. You did borderline the same damn thing. CJ Stroud's first year. All these guys are hurt. They're hurt. You went 10-6. Continuity. We got an offensive line. This is the 5 we've been waiting for. You went 10-6. Like, quit overvaluing this garbage that they overvalue on the offensive line and just figure it out. Quit overthinking this.
It's almost like the divisional round wall is the fact that you don't have a really good offensive line, and that's added to the fact that your wall's not good enough, so you keep running into the divisional round wall.
Yeah, like the Bengals, like, they got so killed when they drafted Jamar Chase. Like, when we talk about, like, they need an offensive line, they drafted Jamar Chase. They don't regret that. Like the Lions, they drafted Gibbs, like, their positional value charts, the people were going crazy. They don't regret that. So if you can just get ballers on offense, it can make your offensive line better. But the thing is, like, the thing we've learned, and it might be me living in a small world, but this is the world that we live in, is covering the Texans. So, I'm sure we can go look at other examples, and I'm sure someone who covers the Chiefs or the Ravens or something like that, they got completely different stories. But there's been one consistency: the offensive line has sucked, and there's been 2 things that have been extremely overvalued. versatility, and then continuity. And throughout that, the offensive line has sucked. Quit overthinking this.
Yeah. There'll be. I'll tell you what. There's a bunch of offensive linemen here in Alabama this week, so be watching those guys.
Yeah, you've got to figure out some stuff. I mean, if you can get guys like on day 2 and figure some stuff out on the O-line, that's more power to you. But you got to get your skill guys better and stuff. And I went back and I actually played this in my other video. DeMeco Ryans talking about what he wanted on offense and offensive staffing. And I played it on my last locker room video as I was talking about the current state of Caserio and DeMeco. And it's just funny because everything he says is like nothing close to what they do. We want to have dump off options and get the ball in playmakers' hands to where we can dump it down. We want to dominate the line of scrimmage. We want to be exotic. We want to be like, it was just like everything that they don't do.
And that's why Bobby Slowick's not here anymore.
Yep. And
I just put Landry's video in there so the folks can watch that when they're done watching this.
Yeah, it's
in the chat.
It's cool. Check that out. Locker room on that. The other thing that I think just needs to be acknowledged when it comes to the way we talk about where the organization is DeMeco failed. Like DeMeco failed. Now, failures come in different ways. And I think he handled it because he didn't drag it out. And I thought he was proactive in trying to correct the failure. But when it comes to DeMeco Ryans and Nick Caserio kind of taking a step back and letting DeMeco Ryans pretty much pick who he wanted to run the offense, he failed. Like the guy was 2 and done and he got significantly worse. So it's not like some sort of like overwhelmingly like DeMeco's not a good coach or anything like that. Like that's going to happen. Like it happens. I mean, there's more times than not, the draft pick is not going to work out. But this was a big topic when DeMeco was hired was what are they going to do on offense? They let him pretty much make the decision. Caserio was basically on the sidelines here because it was his third coaching hire. DeMeco was kind of the new face and Caserio took a back seat, but let's just admit the Bobby Slowick era was pretty much a failure. And anytime you go 2 and done, it's that. So DeMeco did fail. So he's in the middle now of trying to overcome and trying to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, we were thinking at the end of year 2, he's going to be looking for an OC because his OC left because he did so good. In fact, it's the opposite. The OC got fired because he did so bad. So now let's see. It's a failure now, but let's see what he learned from the Bobby Slowick hire that maybe he can change or have different about this hire that he's going to go out there and make, and he can learn from his mistakes. You hope that people usually learn from other people's mistakes. Sometimes you have to learn from your own mistakes, and that's where DeMeco Ryans is right now.
Yep. So we'll see how he handles that, but it was definitely a failure for sure. So there you go. The problems outside of just the offensive coordinator, pretty much just offense, and hopefully the offensive line. We get the inconsistency that we want based on what we've seen the last decade or so, and that's actual good offensive line play. That is the one thing. Like when we talk about the Kubiak era and the golden age, that's the one thing that I think I can point to. I can get down with that type of an offensive line, but that's a far ways away.
I want. Just go get me 2 free agent offensive linemen that would play if you tried to cut their fingers off. If they couldn't move Monday through Saturday, but they could get the Theragun out on Sunday and try to go. Just give me 2 of those guys, like the Eagles guys that we watched in the NFC Championship game where they could barely move. And they're like, nope, got to go out there, got to play, got to do it for my teammates. Go give me 2 of those guys. In free agency and see how much better that offensive line room gets.
Yeah, I mean, they lost one of the best centers of all time, and then they're just kind of still one of the best offensive lines in the league. So you got to wonder what's up. And they've changed offensive coordinators, and they're still doing their thing, whatever it is. Maybe it's some of that Howie juice. Who knows? Dietology, shout out to you, my friend. Best cap option, Wilson. Best wide receiver option, Higgins. Best free agent. This is just how I see it. Also, is he saying Sony Michel? I think he retired.
I think he's coaching now.
Yeah, I think he's retired, or another speed back would work.
I think Sony Michel's coaching, but let me double check that.
Yeah, I think he's. That's like
that's a throwback. I think so. I think he started with saying Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State.
I like Egbuka. Yeah,
I would sign up for Egbuka at 25 right now, and just like he's everything the Texans want in like a wide receiver, but then he also can actually go and make plays. So like he's got all the intangibles that they praise Robert Woods for, but he actually goes out there and like beats guys and gets open and catches the ball. And he's got really high end wide receiver 2 talent, low end wide receiver 1 talent to him. It's like I'd sign up for him right now at 25 and then just figure out the rest of it. The rest of his message, there's a lot going on. They can't afford T. Higgins. So like we could stop talking about T. Higgins. Like they just don't have the money for it.
They could make it work, but no.
I don't even think they can make it work. Like
no,
he's gonna get $100 million plus contract. Like
he'll get a deal.
Like I just don't. So T. Higgins, can't do it. And then Wilson, I can't. I wish he'd given which Wilson he was talking about.
I'm assuming he's saying Garrett.
Oh, well, that's expensive too. That costs you a pick and money.
Yeah, I think he's talking about Garrett.
Oh yeah, they're not getting Garrett Wilson. You think Aaron Glenn wants to trade Garrett Wilson?
Aaron Glenn had a hell of a presser today. Shout out to former Texan Aaron Glenn doing his thing.
His first win.
Winning the damn presser. Winning the damn presser. Yeah, we'll see how this whole thing goes. You're at the Senior Bowl. What are you looking out for? What can the people look out for?
Man, I'm gonna look at a ton of the wide receivers here. It's not as top heavy of a wide receiver class in Mobile as it was last year. Like Ladd McConkey was here last year, and he went at the top of the second round and was really good as a rookie. So not as many of those guys, but there's a lot of day 2 guys, and then currently day 3 that can make themselves day 2 guys in Mobile. Looking for defensive tackles for like middle late rounds, like guys that DeMeco Ryans could evolve into really nice players over the next couple of years. And then these offensive linemen, I know I prefer a veteran, but it's not the worst idea in the world. Get one of these young guys and have them ready and get ready to go. So be watching those. And they get the defensive line for the Senior Bowl this year is the deepest, most talented position. There's like day 1 guys. There's top part of the second round guys. So these offensive linemen are going to get their work. So you go out here.
He's going to be there.
I see that. So to my knowledge, he wasn't here last year.
Good. Stay away from the D lineman. Don't get any ideas.
So I got to imagine he's got to handle some interviews and stuff at NRG. So I'm sure Caserio will be patrolling the sidelines in the vest. So
yeah. So we're gonna get a Gerard interview, right? I would anticipate that's happening this week. I mean, I think that's what Aaron Wilson reported. I think it's happened, right? It happened today or tomorrow, right?
I've been driving all day, so you're my best catch up here on this.
Yeah, I would say it happened. I think it happened today or tomorrow. Who knows? Anyway, appreciate y'all for coming through. Did we miss anything? We think that basically the Texans offense is a disaster, and they can add a lot of things. On the super chat, Jimmy Horn, wide receiver CU, is a good look for like a slot receiver, says Bakari Walker.
I mean, look, I think
is that Joe's son too?
Yep.
Yeah, old school, baby.
I think you throw darts in the late rounds, and look, those Colorado guys, top in passing for back-to-back years. That Colorado offense, they've had a lot of opportunities, and so let's see what they can do. Certainly haven't lacked for opportunities. So.
Dom in Jersey, what's Dom mad at? All the Texans fans tweeting so happy for D-Hop are annoying me. Once you're a Texan, don't care about you, screw D-Hop. Yeah, he's kind of just riding along, isn't he? He's not much of a factor in what they do right now.
Well, and then I guess there was the he had I got traded for peanuts or pennies. Like, they traded
James
a third
Palmer
round.
put that out. It was a long time ago.
They got traded for 3rd round pick, dude.
No, I think he's talking about early in his career. Like James Palmer's bringing up like really old stuff.
No.
Yeah, I think from what I saw, it was one of those graphics, and then I looked at it, and it said early in my career, and it was like, yeah, we're still bringing that up. I think that's James Palmer hanging on to that. Could be wrong.
DeAndre Hopkins told me he was disappointed.
All right, on that note, subscribe, like, right along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.